David Miller had always been taught to respect his elders. At 23, fresh out of college and working his first real job as a junior architect, he carried those values with him everywhere, even on the crowded number 47 bus that took him downtown every morning. It was a Tuesday in late October, and the autumn air had that crisp bite that made everyone huddle a little closer in their coats. David stood near the middle of the bus, earbuds in, scrolling through his phone as the vehicle lurched through morning traffic. At the Maple Street stop, the doors hissed open, and an elderly woman struggled to board. She looked to be in her 80s, with silver hair pinned back in an elegant bun, wearing a worn but well-maintained navy coat. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the handrail. Without hesitation, David pulled out his earbuds and stood up from his seat near the window. "Ma'am," he said with a warm smile, "please take my seat." The woman looked up at him, her pale blue eyes studying his face for a moment. There was something unusual in her expression, not gratitude exactly, but recognition, as if she'd been expecting him. "Thank you, young man," she said in a voice that was stronger than her appearance suggested. "You're very kind." As the bus continued its route, David felt a gentle tug on his jacket sleeve. He looked down to find the elderly woman gazing up at him intently. "What's your name, dear?" she asked. "David. David Miller." "David," she repeated. "Tell me, do you believe in fate?" The question caught him off guard. I guess I believe things happen for a reason sometimes," he answered honestly. She nodded slowly, then reached into her leather bag and pulled out a small, worn envelope. It was yellowed with age, sealed with red wax that had cracked over the years. "I've been riding this bus every Tuesday for 3 months," she said quietly, "waiting for someone like you, someone who still remembers kindness." Before David could respond, she pressed the envelope into his hand. "Don't open it yet. Not here. Read it when you get home tonight. And David, trust what your heart tells you to do." The woman pressed the stop button and stood with surprising grace. She touched David's arm gently, her pale blue eyes sparkling with intensity. "My name is Eleanor Hartwood," she said. "Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist." Then she was gone, stepping off the bus and disappearing into the morning crowd. David stood frozen, aware that at least a dozen pairs of eyes were watching him. A businessman nearby leaned over. "What was that about?" "I have no idea," David admitted, staring at the envelope in his hand. That evening, David sat in his small studio apartment, the envelope on the table in front him. Finally, as the sun set, he broke the old wax seal and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Dear kind soul, if you are reading this, then you are the person I've been searching for. My name is Eleanor Hartwood, and I am dying. The doctors give me 3 months at most. 60 years ago, when I was a young woman with nothing but hope and hunger, a stranger offered me his seat on a bus. It was winter, I was pregnant, and had just been evicted from my apartment. That small act of kindness kept me from giving up. That man changed the trajectory of my entire life. I never got to thank him, but that moment taught me that goodness still exists, even in our darkest hours. Inside this envelope you'll find a key. It opens Safety Deposit Box 347 at First National Bank on Cherry Street. Inside that box is $50,000. I want you to use it to help people the way that stranger helped me. Not all at once, but over time. Look for people who need kindness, who need hope. I chose you because you offered your seat without hesitation, without expecting anything in return. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. The money comes with only one condition. When you've used it all to help others, find someone else who exemplifies kindness, and pass on this same task. Keep the chain of goodness going. Thank you for restoring an old woman's faith one last time. With gratitude, Eleanor Hartwood. David's hands trembled as he finished reading. Taped to the bottom of the letter was a small silver key. The next morning, David went to First National Bank. His hands shook as he opened the safety deposit box. Inside was exactly what Eleanor had promised. $50,000 in neatly bundled bills, along with another envelope containing a faded photograph from the 1960s. The photo showed a young man helping a pregnant woman onto a bus. On the back, in Eleanor's handwriting, "The moment my life changed. I want to give someone else that same moment." David could have kept the money. He had student loans, his rent was barely manageable. The temptation whispered in his ear. But he knew he couldn't. Eleanor had trusted him, and that meant something. 2 weeks later, David was back on the number 47 bus when a young mother boarded with 2 small children, struggling with a broken stroller and grocery bags. She looked exhausted, on the verge of tears. "I'm sorry," she said to the driver, fumbling for change. "I thought I had enough on my card." "Step aside if you can't pay, lady," the driver said gruffly. David moved forward. "I've got it," he said, paying her fare. Once the woman had her children settled, David sat next to her. They talked quietly. Her name was Sarah. Her husband had just lost his job, and they were 3 months behind on rent, facing eviction. David pulled out his phone. "I'm going to transfer some money to you. Give me your phone number." "What? No, I couldn't." "Yes, you can," David said firmly but kindly. "Someone once helped me when I needed it. Now I'm helping you." He sent her $5,000. Sarah stared at her phone, tears streaming down her face. "Pay your rent, feed your family, and someday, when you can, help someone else who needs it." Over the following months, David continued Eleanor's work. He paid for a college student's textbooks when he overheard her crying about having to drop out. He covered medical bills for an elderly man who couldn't afford his heart medication. He helped a veteran get back on his feet. Each time he asked only one thing: that when they were able, they help someone else in need. Word spread. A local news reporter contacted David, and the story aired on a Friday evening. The reporter had done extraordinary research. She tracked down the original stranger who'd helped Eleanor in 1963. His name was James Cooper, a factory worker who had died in 1989. His daughter still lived in the city. When David met James Cooper's daughter, Linda, she was crying. "My father never told us that story," she said. "But that was who he was. He just did kind things without expecting credit." "Your father started something that's still going," David told her. "His kindness has now helped dozens of people. That's his legacy." 3 months after their encounter, David received a call from the hospital. Eleanor wanted to see him. The hospice wing was quiet and filled with soft light. Eleanor lay in a bed by the window, thinner and paler than before, but her eyes were still sharp. "Tell me," she said. "Tell me what you've done." David told her everything. About Sarah and her children, about the college student, about the veteran, about all the lives he'd touched with her gift. Eleanor smiled, tears rolling down her weathered cheeks. "You've done beautifully, better than I ever imagined." "I still have money left," David said. "About half of it. And when it's gone, I'll find someone else to pass the task to. Keep the chain going like you asked." Eleanor reached out with a trembling hand, and David took it gently. "I've been thinking about that stranger on the bus for 60 years, she said. "And I realized something. It doesn't matter who he was. What matters is what he did and what it inspired me to do and what you're doing now. The goodness isn't in the person, it's in the act. And that act multiplies, spreads, becomes something bigger than any one of us." 2 weeks later, Eleanor passed away peacefully. The news story went viral. Within days, it had been shared hundreds of thousands of times on social media. People started copying the idea, creating their own kindness chains, using the hashtag Eleanor's chain. But with visibility came criticism. Some said it was just feel-good nonsense that didn't address systemic problems. Others accused David of keeping the money for himself. David tried to ignore the negativity. His coworker Jennifer told him, "There will always be cynics, but for every one of them, there are 10 people whose lives you've changed. Focus on that." 6 months after Eleanor's death, David had distributed all but $5,000. He'd helped 37 people directly, and through them, countless others had been helped indirectly. Now it was time to find someone to pass Eleanor's task to. He found her in an unexpected place. Rosa Mendez was a custodian at David's office building, in her mid-50s, always smiling despite working long hours. David noticed that Rosa knew everyone's name, remembered birthdays, and always had a kind word. Despite her own struggles as a single mother who had raised 3 children while working 2 jobs, Rosa was always helping others. One afternoon, David asked Rosa to coffee and told her about Eleanor, about the envelope, about everything. Then he pulled out an envelope containing the remaining $5,000. "I want you to be the next link in Eleanor's chain," David said. "Use this money to help people who need it. And when it's gone, find someone else who exemplifies kindness and pass the task to them." Rosa's hands trembled. "David, I don't know what to say. I know you'll honor this. I know you'll make Eleanor proud." 5 years later, David received an email from a teacher in a city 3 states away. She wrote that Eleanor's chain had reached her town through a nurse who had helped pay for classroom supplies. The teacher had traced the kindness back to its source, to David, to Eleanor, and ultimately to James Cooper, who had helped a pregnant woman on a bus 60 years ago. David shared the email with Rosa over coffee. Their meetings had become a monthly tradition. "It's working," Rosa said, tears in her eyes. "Eleanor's dream is working." Rosa had passed the task to a nurse named Patricia after a year of careful observation. Patricia had passed it to a librarian. The chain had grown, split into multiple branches, spreading across the country. David still took the number 47 bus occasionally. He sat in the same seat where Eleanor had sat that October morning, and he thought about how one simple act, offering his seat to an elderly woman, had changed his entire life. As the bus made its stops, David watched passengers. A teenager offered his seat to a pregnant woman. A businessman helped a confused tourist with directions. A young woman paid for a stranger's fare when their card was declined. Small acts of kindness, happening every day, often invisible but profound to those who experienced them. David realized that Eleanor's genius wasn't in the money. Money runs out. Her genius was in creating a story that people wanted to be part of. She tapped into something fundamental, the desire to be good, to matter, to leave the world a little better than we found it. On his office wall now hangs a framed photograph of Eleanor Hartwood alongside a copy of her original letter. His own children, now 8 and 10, know the story. "Will you pass it to us someday?" his daughter asked once. "Maybe," David said, "but you don't need to wait for that. You can start your own chain anytime. That's the real secret, we all can. And perhaps that's the truth of this story. There is no ending. Eleanor's chain continues, growing and spreading, proving every day that one person's kindness can echo through time, touching lives in ways we can't predict or measure. All because one man offered his seat to an old lady on a bus, and she saw an opportunity to change the world. Not all at once, but one kind act at a time.